Before we begin, thank you very much to Clowntown for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you for pitching in, helping to keep the channel going and the daily content coming. Now, I have a quick little thing in regards to that. I'm having some issues with Ko-fi. I have gotten several donations through Ko-fi recently that have had no notifications or messages attached to them. And I don't know why. It's weird. Like, even on my feed that I check for like messages and things to shout out, I don't have anything on there. So I genuinely have no idea what is going on. I just know I've gotten 3 or 4 donations in the last few days, and I have nothing to shout out. So I don't know if it's an issue with Ko-fi's end, or if something changed in a setting that I need to flip back. Whatever reason, it's just an odd little like thing going on. So like, if you're trying to pitch into that like weird Ko-fi story we've been doing in the shout outs, or if you just have a silly name you want me to read off, I apologize if Ko-fi is not allowing me to do that right now. But I do still appreciate the people who are using it. Okay, I don't normally do this. I do not normally go into rumor, news, or speculation until it hits the front page of TFW 2005. However, I want to get ahead of this one in particular because this is pretty huge if true. So, we are taking a look at a post made by a Chinese forum user who goes by, ironically enough, Unicron. And Unicron has been a reliable source. This is actually the same guy who was posting out about upcoming MPG and missing link listings, and was absolutely correct on what was coming out. So they do carry some value when they leak and tease information. And what they have teased at this point seems to be the next Haslab, which seems to be Primus. Which brings me to another little heads up. If there's like a clickbaity BuzzFeed style title to this video, I apologize. I'm just trying things out. But no, it seems like the next Haslab might actually be Primus, which we know is okay now. Like, we got Lyle Kaiser. Everyone has confirmed Lyle Kaiser was built well. No mass widespread QC issues. Seems to be okay. So Hasbro is in the clear. They could be announcing the next Haslab at any point now, and I think they're okay to do so. But Primus is not who I was expecting. I don't know who I was expecting for a next Haslab, really. There's a lot of big characters who had never gotten toys that I would really, really like to have, like, modern figures. Like, I know they wanted to do they announced they wanted to do Road Caesar, but they've dipped into victory so many times at this point. I know, like, we still have, like, fans still want things like animated Omega Supreme, another big guy who never got a toy. I'd rather see that as a Titan personally, so we can get Lugnut Supreme down the line. Point being, Primus is not who I would have expected. In fact, I think Primus is actually potentially a pretty bad idea. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have a giant Cybertron in the collection. I would love to have just like a gigantic planet Cybertron. But I'm only going based off of previous history. So by that, I mean we have to look at Unicron, the original Transformers Haslab. This thing was absurd. Remember, this is 2021. This is 5 years ago now. So 5 years ago, they were asking $575 in order to get this enormous toy of Unicron. And to be fair, he never had a G1 figure that was purely done as G1 from the start. All he had was like the Armada retool prior to this. So it's a necessary figure, and I'm okay with the size because it's Unicron. He should be the largest of all Transformer toys. It's the closest he's going to ever come to scaling with anything. All that said, though, this thing struggled. Despite the demand for a big Unicron toy, despite the demand for G1 Unicron, $575 was a lot to ask people in 2001. Especially when you consider like how many people were out of jobs in the wake of COVID. That was fun times. Oh, that was such fun times. So yeah, it was a big ask. Big ask to the point where they actually extended the deadline. We have not seen a HasLab do this since, to my knowledge. It didn't make the 8,000 it needed in order to actually go into production, so they actually extended it out longer. Eventually, Unicron would end with 12,000 plus backers, which always seemed kind of suspicious to me. Like, all the other HasLabs, we had an exact number for how many people backed it. We know exactly how many are out in the wild. This is a different story. They were vague with how many people actually bid. Now, maybe because it is early, they didn't have like the definition number, the definitive numbers in place yet. I get to understand that. But it did seem kind of suspicious considering it didn't make its original 8,000 in time. It does and always will feel like they cooked the books a little bit. So I don't know how many of those extra 4,000 are real. I don't know how many are just sitting in a Hasbro warehouse somewhere, for a rainy day or whatever. Point being, kind of crazy to do it in the first place. So to do it with Primus, a lesser known, less popular character with far less demand for the toy, is kind of wild. And it's not just that. We are in this really bad period for something like this. So, $575 today is an even bigger ask than it was 5 years ago. We're not going to get political today. We're not. But we are going to mention a couple things because I did some math. I was curious. Now, Hasbro has stated that a figure the size of Unicron as a HasLab would be unfeasible because of how much inflation has increased even in just the last few years. So let's actually acknowledge that. So, $575 in today money. What would it actually cost if they released this Unicron now? So first off, I have to include tax. So in Florida, it's 6.5%. So I am adjusting for myself. So so 575 plus 6.5% brings up to about $612. And if we convert that into today money, that is $779. And then we have to account for the tariffs. That is a situation that seems to change every week. So I'm going to go with just global standard at the moment because it's the only universal one that I know is still up and has not been struck down by a court of any kind. But for right now, that adds another 15% to the price if that maintains. Meaning that if they were to actually release HasLab Unicron today, you would have to fork over almost $900 for it fresh at retail. Now, I know people who stare at this thing going for $2,000 on eBay would salivate at the chance to get it for $900, but keep in mind, for original retail, this is absurd. And you might actually be suggesting to me we're going to do it for a less popular character like Primus? Now, the key to that is the only real reason I argue that number is because of scaling. Now, if they were to do a Primus, you would assume it would be as big as Unicron. The irony being, a screen-accurate Cybertron would be far, far bigger than Unicron. Do you want to pay $4,000 for your Cybertron that doesn't fit anywhere in your room because it's essentially the size of a Volkswagen? I don't want that in my life. So, the only way I could see this working is if you just throw the scale out and make Primus whatever other size makes sense. do him at the 2-foot Titan scale, you know? Like, okay, there, you know, he does not scale with Unicron, but maybe he shouldn't need to scale with Unicron, you know? Maybe we can design this, you know, 2000 style where like eventually I kind of assume an Armada Unicron is going to come out, if only for the sake of keeping the character in new toys, and keeping the trademark, etc. So maybe that would be the case. And we get like a 2-foot tall Armada Unicron to go with our 2-foot tall Cybertron Primus. I'd be down for that. Honestly, I would be. And that's assuming it might be Cybertron. So, if we're being exact, the Haslab stuff has been very good on original designs. I don't think the Cosmic Warrior versions of Primus are going to play a factor here, though. Either of them, because Marvel UK and Marvel Comics themselves both had different ideas of how they would design Primus. I don't think these are going to be what they go with, though it would be cool to see little nods to this hidden somewhere in the figure. Don't know how you do it, but it'd be neat. And we're looking at designs. The Cybertron one is the most obvious because it's literally the only one you could have toy nostalgia for. There just haven't been any official Primus toys outside of this one, unless you go to like the gold Rodimus Primes that Japan really, really liked to push as like the Primus toys. It was always kind of silly for me, but I mean, I don't know. It got the idea. It got the toy out. Primus had a toy. It's a chrome Rodimus, but what do you want besides a planet? Honestly, like I'd be good with the I'd be good with the Don Figueroa design. This has always been a really sick design for Primus and the planet Cybertron as a transformer. Like, I love how spiky it is. I like how it is like somewhat Cybertron in design, but somewhat doing its own thing. It looks correct to me. Like, it looks like how I would want a gigantic Primus to look. And we actually have a little bit of this canonized. So we have the design from Transformers 1 that does notably take design elements from that iteration of Primus. Now, I would argue that it also takes a little bit from some of the other Planet Former toys that we've had. You know, there is a little bit of the Cybertron design in there. I think I even want to say that, like, the way the shell wraps over the hand like that in the robot mode makes me think back to, like, the Beast Wars Neo Unicron prototype. It's incredibly unlikely they use that for anything, but hey, a boy can dream. I don't know. I feel like it does have to be the Dawn design, right? It's got to be this one, right? If we're gonna do something like G1-ish Primus, then it's got to be the red chest. It's got to be like the steel blue body. It's got to be this one. It's got to be something along this line, right? And then we have to talk like features that you would actually want to see in a toy that big, because I don't think it's enough to just make him really, really big. You know, you're going to have some kind of gimmickry or some kind of bonuses in order to actually, for starters, we need stuff for stretch goals. So what are you going to do for stretch goals from Planet Cybertron? There's stuff, you know. Can we do like throw in the moon bases? Like if it backs to like 14,000, you just throw in 2 tiny little like moon base ones that transform like Armada Unicron's Minicon. That would be cool. It'd be silly, but it'd be cool. Little nods, little things they could throw in that would make the toy cooler. I would really like some little secret spot where you could see the G1 Primus face. Like when they actually, in the G1 comics, where they went deep into the planet and they actually found where Primus's head stored away in the planet. That would be a cool design choice. It'd be a nightmare to paint at the factory level, but yeah, I think this would be a fun design element to sneak in there somewhere. Other little fun elements, there's little iconic spots on Cybertron from pretty much any continuity, especially your G1 style ones. So I could imagine like places like Iacon and, you know, Tarn, you know, all the different like Autobot and Decepticon cities would be decorated across the surface of the planet. Keep in mind, on the original Cybertron toy, there are spots that are supposed to be these locations. You know, I wouldn't even mind if you threw in things like Cybertropolis, you know, and I could see like, you know, Beast Machine's Megatron's base in the center. You know, or things like this, where like I have to be able to see the tower for, I want to see the tower for the space bridge. I have to see that. What about the gash? Like that's the engineering trick, right? Like to actually have like the gash that was always shown in the original Cybertron cartoon, or the original G1 cartoon rather, that goes all the way into the middle of Cybertron. That would be really cool, but very hard to engineer around, I assume. Can I get Vector Sigma as a tiny little accessory that can be found somewhere inside the planet? Or more than that, do we want to go one step further? We can do like a Vector Sigma that would scale to your normal size Transformers, kind of similar to the one that came with like the Alpha Trion a ways back. But you could push it a little bit further. What if Vector Prime actually turned into the Primus, the Rodimus repaint Primus? Because I feel like you gotta throw it in there somewhere, just for fun, because it is the only like toy depiction of Primus that existed for a hot minute, and there are plenty of fictions that adapted that idea. The idea that Rodimus is such a chosen one in the overall lore of G1 that, you know, even his physical form looks like Primus, you know? You could get away with that. I think that would be a fun little nod. It'd be something for Vector Sigma to do rather than just be a ball. Can we do something different with these, please? Oh my god, I don't want the plate. I love the idea of having like something that all of the relics can do, but not this. If there's somewhere for them to all store inside of Primus's parts, just like opening up like planet chunks and shells, or like the back of his legs or something, and there's like little compartments that all of the Prime items store inside, that would actually be a pretty neat little trick. I don't even need them to be visible or anything. I just kind of need to know that like Primus can reclaim them as needed. But no, that's pretty much what I got for you as far as like speculation and wondering goes. Like I said, this is a consistent leaker. This is someone who has been able to pluck out things that Takara has been working on pretty regularly, and they've been accurate. So there is some credibility to this, but until Hasbro officially announces something, we are in the dark. I'm going to withhold any further judgment until we see an actual product offered. You know, whether or not it's going to be worth whatever exorbitant cost that will have to come with it. We can talk about that a later day once it's official. But for now, this is just all speculation. So feel free to speculate in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.